Hey guys, I'm Maria, and today's caffeinated conversation is super exciting because I'm here with Christopher West.
Hey Maria.
How's it going?
Great. Hey everybody.
This is really fun. So for those of you who know who Christopher West is, you know why I'm excited. And for those of you who don't, you could say that Christopher, you're really responsible. He's played a large role in taking the theology of the body writings of St. John Paul II and making them accessible to a modern audience. So we were kind of joking before, I think you're kind of almost like a Julia Child. You've taken like this art of French cooking, more so to speak, and brought it down to an American audience.
Let's talk about theology of the body.
Let's do it. You spend like your life, you've written numerous books and you're traveling all around the world. So what would you say is almost like the state of the union of marriage right now and sexuality? What's your temperature read?
Okay, it's the best of time. No, it's the worst of times. But there are signs that we could have, I believe, the best of times.
What are those?
Here's why. Right now, marriage is being crucified.
Yeah.
But we know that's not the end of the story, right? So John Paul II tells us that marriage is the primordial sacrament. What the heck does that mean? It means right from the beginning, at the very foundations of time, our humanity as male and female is meant to communicate a divine love story. That's what makes our bodies theological, not just biological. Our bodies tell God's love story. Well, if that's true, it shouldn't surprise us at all that marriage is going to be mocked.
Yeah, that's so true.
Spat upon, rejected, crowned with thorns, crucified, and it's going to die.
Which is where we are right now.
It's right where we are. We are in that death, right?
Yeah.
But we're really, I would say we're experiencing the passion of marriage. And if marriage really is a sacrament, that means it really images and participates in the death and resurrection of Christ. Keyword, and resurrection. That's why I say it's the worst of times, but it's the best of times.
And we're meant to be going through this.
Yes. Yeah. Why does the Lord allow this? It's a mystery. We don't know, but the Lord is allowing this. And I really believe He's allowing it to bring about a greater glory. If it's as dark can be, give it 3 days.
Yeah, that's true.
And see what happens.
Yeah.
This is the Christian mystery, right?
Yeah.
So if we're witnessing this passion of marriage, we're also, God willing, in our lifetime, we're going to witness the resurrection of marriage.
What do you think has brought us kind of to this point?
Yeah, I think you have to look at the history of the sexual revolution and why it happened. And here I think is a metaphor that works. It helps me a lot. We're all raised in a culture that is leading us to what I call the fast food gospel. It's the promise of immediate gratification for these hungers and desires. That's the sexual revolution, right?
Totally.
But it's a response to what I call the starvation diet gospel, which is what a lot of people grow up with in the church. And by that I mean the basic message is your desires, especially those desires, are bad, dirty, wrong, evil. They just need to be repressed.
Don't talk about
it, taboo, evil, reject it, repress it. But follow all these rules and you'll be a good upstanding Christian citizen.
And you don't know why you're following those rules.
Yeah, they're just rules. I don't know about you, Maria, but if the only two choices for this hunger and passion that I have felt in my bones my whole life, if the only two options are starvation or fast food,
yeah, you're going to go for it.
I'm going for the nuggets.
Exactly.
And don't lie to me, they taste good going down.
It's true. Right? And then afterwards, though, that's when you're like, oh.
Right. If you've seen the movie Super Size Me, that's a picture, the guy who ate McDonald's for 30 days straight.
Right.
And what happened to him, that's a picture of me in my college years. I had eaten a lot of grease and sodium, so to speak, and I was dying inside from it. I think that's a window into the dynamic of the sexual revolution. It's an understandable response to this puritanical past that we've had as Christians. What I found in the theology of the body, Christianity, John Paul II teaches, is not a starvation diet. That's my language, but I'm conveying what he's trying to say.
Right.
Christianity is not a starvation diet. It's an invitation to a banquet, an infinite wedding feast.
Which is so contrary to what people believe. You know, they just don't
it's not what we think.
Yeah.
We think Christianity is contrary to what we're really looking for.
Exactly.
We think the options are fast food or starvation.
Exactly.
Okay, if those are the only two choices,
Yeah.
St. Paul himself says, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die, right?
Yeah.
If the contest is between the starvation approach and the fast food, who wins?
Right. Fast food.
Fast food.
Every time.
Every time.
Always going to go through.
But if the contest is between the fast food and this infinite feast of life and love that corresponds to our deepest hungers and desires, who wins?
Yeah. Every time.
The
God,
feast.
Yeah.
Amen. So Jesus says, go out into the main streets and invite everyone to starve. No, it's not what Jesus says. He says, go out into the main streets and invite everyone to the
Yeah.
wedding feast.
And it's such an attractive message. So how come we're not getting it out there? Like what is that blockade? Because it's the fullness of what we're called to, and it will bring more joy, but the nuggets are still there and they're more attractive. What do you attribute as the failure there?
We're up against some powerful forces here. There is an enemy who doesn't want us to know who we are. Put it this way, if marriage is the primordial sacrament, and again what we mean there is it's the original sign God has given us to point us to the divine life, to point us to heaven.
Yeah.
Right? So the Bible begins with the marriage of man and woman, but it ends with the marriage of Christ and the church. That's our destiny. That's where we're headed, to this infinite bliss in union with God forever. But there's an enemy who doesn't want us to get there. And if marriage is that main sign God has given us to point us there, that's what he's going to attack. Right? I like to say God gave us erotic desire to be like the fuel of a rocket that has the power to launch us to the stars, to infinity and beyond. But with original sin, those rocket engines got inverted.
Yes.
Right? And this is why we go out into the world seeking love, seeking happiness, seeking fulfillment, but so often it backfires on us. There really is an enemy who doesn't want us to reach our destiny. He's more powerful than we are on our own, but we're not on our own.
Right, exactly.
There is a God who loves us, who came into the world, sent his son into the world, not to condemn those with inverted rocket engines, but to redirect our rocket engines to the stars.
Totally. When you're speaking to, or when you're with like young couples, do you ever get feedback of like, whoa, this really, changed my life, or people who have been on both sides of it?
Yes, for
Before
sure.
and afters?
And let me just underscore here, we're talking about marriage a lot, and you mentioned couples, but I want to really emphasize theology of the body is not just for married people.
Yeah, right. No, it's
I like to say if you, it's a whole vision of what it means to be human.
Yeah, the human person.
So I like to say if you have a body, theology of the body applies to you. Right. Theology of the body is for every body. Right. Because everyone has this destiny of this eternal union. And in this context, we can understand why Jesus says some people renounce marriage for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Why? Not because marriage is bad, but because marriage in planet Earth is just a little glimmer of something far
much
greater.
Yes.
And the thing that really corresponds to the hunger is not the union of man and woman. That's just like the hors d'oeuvre. That's just the foreshadowing to the feast we're made for. And those who are celibate for the kingdom, they're not saying sex is bad. They're saying there's something even greater, right? They're directing their rocket engines to the stars and they're saying, hey, everybody, let's aim here, right? Married couples are supposed to do the same. So there's a complementarity between the two vocations. But it's so important we understand theology of the body is not just for married people. So your question was, refresh my memory.
Yeah, the couples, I guess even just maybe couples getting ready for marriage, is there kind of like a before and after, or I guess really anybody, it doesn't have to be getting ready for marriage. Do you notice like once they hear of it, what's their feedback to you? Like
here's the typical response. And this was my response when I first discovered the theology of the body.
Where's it been?
Where's it been, and why hasn't anybody told me this? I went to Catholic schools my whole life. I hear this all the time. I went to Catholic schools my whole life and never heard this Why not?
Well, and because I think the starvation diet there too, it's not accepted. It's kind of taboo to talk about. And
Yeah, we don't have a language. That's one of the problems. Even good-hearted people who, for example, parents who want to pass on a beautiful vision to their children, they kind of get tongue-tied, they get tripped up because we don't have a language really. We haven't been given a language to talk about this, or the language we've been given is kind of something we learn at a construction site, so to speak.
That's true.
Yeah, which reminds me of a funny story.
What's that?
A friend of mine moved to this country from Czechoslovakia,
Okay.
and he spoke very broken English, and he learned the language at a construction site. He was a construction worker, and he used to point to things. He'd say, "What's this?" or "What's that?" And he had a little pocket recorder. He'd say, "Hammer," into the recorder, and at the end of the day, he'd look up all the words. Oh, no. And there's this expression being tossed around the construction site, "You son of beach," as my friend with his accent would say. So he records it, "son of beach," and he looks up the words "son," S-U-N, of beach, B-E-A-C-H, and he actually thought this was a cordial expression that you were wishing
was he
people.
Introduced it like, hey.
Yeah, he thought you were wishing
Good
people
morning.
good weather on the beach. The day he met his pastor, he says, "Oh, Father, you son of beach." Now, I use this as an analogy. I'll say,
It's terrible.
Poor
father is
if
like,
if you were overhearing that conversation between my friend Peter and his pastor, what would the loving thing be to do?
Call him out and be like, that's
Yeah,
not
you'd-
quite what you meant to
Yeah,
say.
you'd want to
there,
pull him
buddy.
aside and say, "Hey, let me explain what you're really saying
Yeah.
there." Well, this is what John Paul II is doing with his theology of the body. Because most of us have learned the language of sex at a construction site, so to speak. And he's pulling us aside and he's saying, "Let me tell you what this really means. This is more beautiful. This is more glorious than we've ever dared to dream or imagine. God made us male and female to launch us to this eternal reality of love and union called heaven."
And I think we're only just unpacking it too. Like there's so much here, and it's only the first
129
not even 50 years.
talks over 5 years.
Yeah.
So even when I give, I teach these courses for the Theology of the Body Institute.
Right.
I have a level 1 and a level 2. And when you've been through 60 hours of instruction, I tell my students, now you have a decent introduction.
Okay, well that's good because I did the first course with you a couple months ago, and yeah, I feel like there's still so much there.
What
but
was
I
your
feel like
experience?
it was good. It was a lot to take in, though. I think the course was called Head and Heart Immersion, and I just thought that was a catchy title. And then what I realized it was that not just that head immersion, but the heart immersion is what I wasn't expecting. It really kind of almost just knocks you over.
Yeah, we got to go
There's a
from
lot,
here
yeah,
to here.
to internalize.
And if we don't, there's a danger, because one of the sad things about the way we do theology in certain parts of the church is academic theology is an awesome gift. I've been studying academically
Right.
my whole adult life, theology. But there's a danger of just keeping it up here. Tragically, you can get your PhD in theology and get A's on all your exams, but never journey from here to here.
Right.
Teresa of Avila, who never studied formally theology, but she's a doctor of the church, she used to pick the minds of the great theologians of her day, but she would often come away from these meetings really sad. And she'd say, for all their knowledge, they haven't allowed their hearts to be overwhelmed by divine love. That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I think that's like really taking it to the next step too. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It is. That next step is not just that we know that God loves us. I mean, how many people can say, "Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so."
Yeah.
But the experiential encounter with that love at such a deep level of our hearts that it changes us inwardly. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's what this vision of St. John Paul II really invites us to, an inner transformation. My own marriage has been kind of the lab class for me here.
Poor Wendy.
Yes.
She's a good sport.
She is a good sport. I often tell this story that kind of brings it home. We've been married almost 22 years, and right about the 10-year mark of our marriage, I was offered a very lucrative book deal by the biggest publishing house in the world.
Okay.
And they wanted me to write a book for husbands called Loving Her Rightly.
Okay.
You should have seen the look on my wife's face when I told her that title.
She's like, honey,
she's like, honey, you and I need to talk. And it's going to be long and it's going to be painful. Here I was traveling the world, sharing all this great theology, but things at home weren't going so well because I wasn't really making the journey from here to here. So I never wrote that book. Instead, I let my wife tell me over many weeks what it was like to be married to the theology of the body guy.
Yeah, which can't be easy.
For the last 10 years.
Yeah.
See, I don't want to paint the wrong picture. You know, we're all wheat and weeds growing together. I had a great marriage in many, many respects, but there are also a lot of weeds in there I wasn't looking at, and it's so important in our journeys that we know we're loved in our brokenness. So we all have that fear that Adam has, and John Paul II talks a lot about this. I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself, right? What are we hiding from? We're afraid that we're not loved in our real nakedness. That's what we're afraid of. The whole journey of the Christian life and the theology of the body helps us with this so beautifully. The whole journey, I like to say, is the reverse of that fear, where we get to say, I was at peace because I knew he loved me. Not just here, I knew it here. I knew he loved me in all my brokenness, so I exposed myself. I made myself naked before God. I don't know about you, Marie, but I don't want to just know that I am loved when my masks are on. Anybody can put on a pretty face.
Right.
I want to know, and I bet you do too, Maria, that you are loved when the masks are off.
Yeah, in all your messiness.
In all your messiness.
Yeah, absolutely.
And somebody once said to me, and I really like it, she said to me, Christopher, you're a beautiful mess. And I think it's the best compliment we can give somebody. Yeah. Maria, you're a beautiful mess.
Beautiful hot mess.
I'm a beautiful mess too. That's who we really are.
No, it's totally true.
But we're loved right there. That's the good news. Yeah. And when we know that, not just here, but here, we can be naked without shame.
I think, yeah, especially for couples, we've been talking about this because you're working on the marriage program, just kind of translating that, because it opens up this whole new way to love when you don't have to be perfectly lined up or have all these masks on and be, this presentation of yourself to the world.
Priest once said to me,
freedom there.
And this really, and he knows me very well, and this encapsulated my own struggles and problems. He says, Christopher, you're a recovering perfectionist. And he says, see, you think a saint is somebody who has his S-H-I-T together. Yeah. He said, no, you got it all wrong. A saint is someone who has all of his or her S-H-I-T open to the merciful love of God. Yeah, I remember one of the things from the course that really stood out to me that you said was, just opening up this really clear prayer to God. You can just say exactly how you feel. You don't have to put on a mask and say, kind of phrase everything the right way and phrase it the way that you might think that this is what the Lord would want from you. But you can be you can just be raw. And be Let it
this
out.
This is what I'm feeling, and this is why I don't think it's fair, and this is,
there's stuff we feel inside that's got to come out, and that's prayer. Yeah. Really pray. I had, you're referring to this experience I had of being on retreat some years ago, and the priest led me through these exercises of getting in touch with my heart and my real desires, and with it came out a lot of anger, and I let God have it. And I thought I needed to go confession because I was pretty darn blunt with God about how I felt. Yeah. Various expletives were flowing out and what have you. And so I went to the priest and confessed all this, and he said to me, good prayer. Yeah. He says, you don't need to confess that you got real with God. You need to confess that you haven't been real with God. You've been wearing all these pious masks. He says, now you're taking them off. Now you're getting naked before your maker. He says, that's prayer. Yeah, that was really eye-opening to me of just, that you can just be completely straight up. You don't have to, I don't know. He knows us anyway, as if he can't see behind our masks that we wear. But I think even knowing that, just as that's a good practice of how to pray. Even kind of knowing that head knowledge that, we don't have to be perfect before God, but somehow that story just really resonated. So see, here's what he was teaching me, that beautiful priest I went on retreat with. He was teaching me, as he said, that prayer is an exercise of desire. I love this. I love this. St. Augustine said, that our hearts are a gymnasium of desire. And prayer, if we want to pray always, right? That's what Scripture says, pray always. St. Augustine says, you want to pray always? Then you need to get in touch with the deepest desires of your heart and let God stretch them. Because he says the increase of our longing is the increase of our prayer. It's been really fun working with the Ascension Press team on this new version of the marriage prep program.
By the way, sorry, Christopher and I were working together on a marriage prep program, so that's the little aside there. But it's been really cool.
I've been involved in marriage preparation for over 20 years, and when we first filmed the original version of this program some 14 or 15 years ago, it dawned on me recently that, oh my gosh, the couples who are getting married today were like 10 years old or something when we first filmed that.
Wow.
And a lot has happened in the world and the culture. What these couples today are facing is different than even just 10 or 15 years ago. And we needed a new program. Not a new program, but an update of this existing program. And it's been really fun crafting the approach, looking at some of the contemporary issues and how to address them in a compelling way. And I'm really, really excited about what we've brought together. This new program, Joyfilled Marriage, it has two components. There's the sacramental component, if you will, where we look at God's plan for love and God's plan for what is the sacrament and what is human sexuality and how does it all come together. And then there's another component called Life Skills for Couples. And Tom McCabe and Greg Popchak, both friends of mine, have done a bang-up job on taking this beautiful vision and also making it very practical.
Yes. Communication
skills, handling conflict, finances, all those nitty-gritties. We need both. We need the grand vision of what God's plan is for the sacrament of marriage and human sexuality, and we also need the nuts and bolts and how to live it out. So this program is like the 1-2 punch. Brings them both together and makes something really, brings to the couple something very compelling and powerful in a life-changing way. And there's been surveys of the couples who've been through the programs, and the results are really life-changing.
Yeah, what were I know you were just talking about them before.
Yeah, and one of the promotional pieces we were talking about how 94%, this was a survey of 3,000 couples, 94% said this program opened their eyes in a whole new way to the church's teaching.
It's crazy. Yeah, I think that's right. They said that, and I was just, that's insane.
And 97% said this really improved their relationship with God. That tells me that it's not that couples have heard this vision and rejected it. They really haven't heard the church's vision in its fullness, or at least not in a compelling, beautiful way. And when they do, it really changes lives.
It's been neat for me because with this project, I haven't been as involved. I've been more kind of behind the scenes on the smaller things. So what has it been like for you kind of taking what was already there and bringing new life to it, making it fresh? Like, as you've been the main writer on a lot of it with these guys.
What I really liked is the different approach we did this time. When we filmed it in 2003 or 4, I was in front of a group of engaged couples, and it was just one of our weekend events, and it was filmed.
Probably filmed in a couple hours, too.
Yeah, we filmed it in one day, right? And then the editors went to work and did their magic.
So we did this time, too, right? It was just a couple it wasn't a lot of work at all.
No. We put a lot of time and energy. We had really beautiful cinematic shoots, and we just made it really approachable, relatable, and it's going to be stunningly beautiful. We are on location on beautiful mountaintops, looking over gorgeous rivers, sunsets and campfires, and we went to a vineyard. We were talking about the wedding feast at Cana and what's the meaning of the new wine. So we filmed that session in a vineyard. The Ascension Press team, top-notch guys and gals.
I'll keep them around.
Yeah, I really, I've been working with Ascension Press for years, but to kind of get plugged back in and see the way Ascension Press has evolved over the years.
It's a new day.
For me, it was really, really exciting. Top-notch film production is being done with the Ascension Press team, and I really, really benefited and enjoyed being part of it.
I'm so glad. So I guess, with that, I don't know, do you have any last words about the program or anything?
You and I, earlier today, we were sharing JP2 stories.
That's true.
And I thought it was fascinating that you and I both met St. John Paul II twice in our lives, and he said short things to both of us that made a big impact. So I thought I didn't get to tell you mine.
Yeah,
so.
I was just going to ask you, what was yours?
Yeah, no, you go first.
Okay. Well, I don't know. What part do you want me to tell?
Tell us those short words that you had in those encounters.
Yeah, so Christopher, we both are obviously big JP2 fans. So, I was able to meet him
what were the years
ago.
that you...
Oh, gosh, it must have been maybe like 2004 or something like that.
So soon before
2003,
he died?
Actually.
2003?
Yeah, because he died in 2005, so I think it was 2003. Yeah, it was 2003.
And so you met him twice that year? Or
2002 and 2003.
2002 and 2003.
But yeah, the short words came from 2003. I was in his library with my family meeting him, and we were kind of kneeling before him in the library. And my sister and I had the same haircut at the time. This is like little Bob, but she is like 12, 13 years older than me. So there's obviously an age difference. So he pointed to me and he goes, you are littler. And I remember just thinking...
Littler.
Yeah, I was just kind of laughing because this great linguist used the word littler, which isn't a word. But I was like, I'll let JP2 off the hook. So in the moment, it didn't really strike me as anything. It was just kind of more funny. But then just kind of letting my heart stew with that, like, these are the words, like, these 3 words are the words one of the greatest saints of the 20th and 21st century said to me specifically, like, you are littler. And even if he didn't mean it at the time, I think the Holy Spirit really, like, worked on it and really spoke to me, like, no, like, I mean, obviously be mature, don't be immature.
Kind of like Therese,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
The little way.
And Jacinta, Fatima is to remain little. And so that's something I've really... I don't know, it just resonated, and I've tried to live. Yeah, so I picked now Saint Jacinta of Fatima for my confirmation saint. And that was crazy too, because I ended up getting confirmed in the Vatican the day he died.
Wow,
Literally in the shadow of his papal apartments where he would have been passing away. So it was remarkable. So those are mine too, but I was eager to hear what yours were.
I met St. John Paul II for the first time in 1995. I was a student at the time at the John Paul II Institute for Studies on Marriage and Family in DC. And I was also a musician, and I had come out with an album called Pilgrim.
Oh.
And I gave the Pope a copy of my album. So
I
was introduced to him. If that ever turns out, wouldn't that be? It's floating out there somewhere.
We can make it the background music for the video.
So I was introduced by the cardinal who brought me there to the Pope as a student at his institute. And he looked me in the eye and says, student. And then he looked at my album and he looked at me and said, pilgrim. So these 2 words, student and pilgrim, said to me by John Paul II have meant a great deal to me. That to be a teacher of his vision, I always have to remain a student and a pilgrim. And then when I met him in 2001, it was the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, December 8th, which has great significance for theology of the body geeks like me, because he started writing the theology of the body on December 8th, 1974.
I didn't realize that.
And he dedicated it to the Immaculate Conception.
Wow.
So,
whoa.
Yeah, powerful. So I was invited by Cardinal Dziwisz, he wasn't a cardinal at the time, but Bishop Dziwisz, to the private mass of the Holy Father on December 8th, 2001. And then afterwards we were brought into the library to meet him and greet him, and I gave him a copy of my book. I was telling him all about my work, spreading theology of the body around the world. It was really fun because the last time I met him I was the student, and now I was spreading the teaching and teaching it. And he was, paying attention and interested, but he was much more interested when I showed him a picture of my wife and kids.
Really? That's beautiful.
And this made a huge impression on me. When I showed him that picture of my wife and kids, he smiled widely, gave me extra rosaries to bring home to my family, and the impression for me, not spoken with words, but just his body language was, Christopher, don't ever forget, living this, loving your wife and loving your kids is much more important than teaching this.
Whoa. I mean, and that's really significant going back to what Wendy said of,
exactly.
We need to chat, so.
Journey from here to here. In fact, you know what, Maria?
Yeah.
Just right now, as you making that connection, I can see that JP2 planted some seeds there that grew. In fact, they didn't really grow in my life until after he died. And I really sensed when he died that there was an intercessor in heaven really helping me journey from here to here.
So cool. Yeah, and I feel like you guys have to be buds because you're doing so much of the same work. Like you're really kind of carrying on his legacy. So there's it's a father figure there carrying on a legacy.
Absolutely. I cannot wait. Of course, we're going to embrace the Trinity, the Blessed Mother.
Yeah.
all the saints and angels. We're going to meet them all, but it's going to be a particular blessing for me, God willing, to embrace JPT.
No, that's so cool. I feel the same way just with Presents. I mean, his inspiration to me was really to go into media, and so I feel like after doing years of study, now being able to really produce Ascension Presents has been like such a legacy. Like he really is that father figure, and this is, when I was in Rome about 2 years ago, I pulled up Presents on my website and I just, on my phone, I just stuck it on his tomb and I was like, here you go.
Oh,
like,
that's beautiful.
It was just really cool. Like, you know, he was the inspiration for it. So I understand that kind of legacy portion of it. So you gotta keep carrying it on.
And so do you.
Yeah, it's true.
And now we get to share it together.
I know, this is significant for me, so this has been really cool. So,
awesome, Maria.
Yay, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We encourage you, go ahead.
Take up a further study of John Paul II's theology of the body.
Yeah.
Ascension Press has loads of content and materials, and coreproject.com has loads of content and materials. corproject.com.
The marriage program we've been talking about, Joyfilled Marriage, is going to be available on ascensionpress.com. That is the parent site to Ascension Presents. And please do like and subscribe to Ascension Presents. It really helps get all these videos out. We've got Father Mike, we've got Caffeinated Conversations, culture videos, and like Christopher said, check out coreproject.com for more from him. So until then, cheers.
Cheers, everybody.